The ice moon of Kelvar 9 was not supposed to be this cold. Commander Sarah Chen had checked the weather readings 3 times before leaving the research station, and each time the system had promised mild conditions. -20 degrees, it had said, manageable with standard gear. The system had lied. Sarah crouched behind a ridge of frozen methane, her breath forming crystals in the air before her face. The temperature had dropped to -40 in the last hour, and the wind cut through her thermal coat like it was made of paper. Her emergency beacon was active, but the station was 6 kilometers away, and the ice storm had grounded all transport vehicles. She would have to wait it out. She pulled her knees to her chest and wrapped her arms around herself, trying to conserve heat. The mission had been simple: collect samples from the thermal vents in Sector 7. She had done this dozens of times. But the storm had come from nowhere, and now she was trapped in a shallow cave, watching ice crystals form on the inside of her visor. That was when she heard the sound. A soft chittering, like tiny bells made of glass. Sarah turned her head slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. In the dim light of her helmet lamp, she saw them. 3 small creatures, no bigger than her hand, with translucent bodies that glowed faintly blue. They looked like a cross between a spider and a jellyfish, with 6 delicate legs and flowing tendrils that trailed behind them. Their bodies pulsed with a soft internal light, growing dimmer with each passing moment. Sarah recognized them immediately. Lumisects. The indigenous species of Kelvar 9, rarely seen and poorly understood. The xenobiology team at the station had been trying to study them for months, but the creatures were elusive, appearing only during the warmest parts of the day when the temperature rose above -10 degrees. These 3 were dying. She could see it in the way their light flickered, the way their movements had become sluggish. The temperature was far too cold for them. The first lumisect crawled toward her, its tiny legs barely able to find purchase on the ice. It reached her boot and began climbing, its body trembling. Sarah held perfectly still, barely breathing. The creature reached her knee, then continued upward, seeking warmth. The second and third lumisects followed. Sarah wanted to move. Her left leg was cramping, and her back was pressed against the frozen cave wall in an uncomfortable angle. But she watched as the 3 creatures made their way up her body, their movements desperate and weak. They reached her torso and, one by one, slipped under the edge of her thermal coat. She felt them against her suit, their bodies cold at first, almost painfully so. They crawled across her stomach and settled there, huddling together. Within seconds, she felt them begin to warm up. The faint glow that had been dying now steadied, pulsing gently against the fabric of her suit. Sarah let out a slow breath and closed her eyes. The storm howled outside the cave, and her body screamed at her to move, to adjust her position, to ease the growing pain in her muscles. But she stayed still. Minutes passed, like hours. The cold seeped deeper into her bones, and her fingers had gone numb inside her gloves. She checked her suit's internal temperature reading. It was dropping. The heating elements in her gear were struggling to keep up with the extreme cold, and having 3 ice-cold creatures pressed against her core was not helping. But when she looked down and saw the gentle blue glow emanating from beneath her coat, steady and strong now, she knew she could not move. The xenobiology reports had described lumisects as solitary creatures, coming together only to reproduce once every 3 years. They lived in the thermal vents, drawing energy from the heat. Away from those vents, they could survive only a few hours in normal conditions. In this cold, they had minutes at best. Sarah's comm unit crackled. "Commander Chen, this is base. We're reading your beacon. Transport is still grounded. Can you confirm your status?" She reached slowly for the comm button on her wrist, moving with extreme care. "Status is stable," she said quietly. "I've found shelter. I can wait out the storm." "Copy that. Your suit temperature is reading low. Are your heating elements functioning?" Sarah glanced down at the faint glow under her coat. functioning within parameters, she said. It was not entirely a lie. The heaters were working. They just were not enough right now. Understood. Estimate 2 hours until we can send extraction. Hang tight. 2 hours. Sarah settled back against the cave wall and closed her eyes. She could do 2 hours. The Lumisecs stirred slightly, adjusting their position. Sarah felt one of them move closer to her side, where her body heat was strongest. She smiled despite the cold. The creatures had no way of knowing she was helping them. They were simply following their instinct to survive, to find warmth in a frozen world. Just like her. 30 minutes passed. Sarah's legs had gone from cramping to numb. Her teeth chattered, and she clenched her jaw to stop them. The storm outside showed no signs of easing, but under her coat, the 3 Lumisecs glowed steadily, their light stronger now, pulsing in a synchronized rhythm that almost felt like a heartbeat. She thought about the reports she had read. Lumisecs were believed to be semi-intelligent, capable of basic problem-solving and communication with each other through bioluminescent pulses. They were also empathetic, the reports suggested, responding to the emotions of other creatures around them. As if responding to her thoughts, the Lumisec's glow brightened slightly, and Sarah felt a wave of warmth spread through her chest. Not physical warmth, but something else. A feeling of calm, of comfort. It was probably her imagination, her oxygen-deprived brain creating illusions. But it felt real. "Thank you," she whispered. The glow pulsed once, bright and clear. Another hour passed. Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness, her body shutting down non-essential functions to conserve heat. She dreamed of Earth, of warm summer days and sunshine on her face. She dreamed of her daughter, who would be 10 now, who she had not seen in 3 years. The comm crackled again. "Commander Chen, transport is inbound. ETA 15 minutes. Sarah opened her eyes. 15 minutes. She had made it. Slowly, carefully, she reached down and opened the edge of her coat. The 3 Lumisecs stirred, their glow bright and healthy. They crawled out one by one, moving down her leg and onto the cave floor. They gathered together, their tendrils intertwining, and then they began to move toward the cave entrance. Sarah watched them go. At the entrance, they stopped and turned back. Their bodies pulsed in unison, 3 bright flashes of blue light. Then they disappeared into the storm. When the transport arrived, Sarah could barely stand. The rescue team had to help her into the vehicle, wrapping her in thermal blankets and administering heat packs. Her core temperature had dropped dangerously low, and frostbite had set in on her toes and fingers. "What were you doing out here?" the medic asked. "Your suit readings show you were barely moving for 2 hours." Sarah smiled, her lips cracked and painful. "Just waiting out the storm." 3 days later, Sarah was released from the medical bay. Her fingers and toes would recover fully, the doctors said. She had been lucky. She returned to her quarters and found a message waiting on her terminal. It was from Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of xenobiology. Sarah opened it. "Commander Chen, I wanted to inform you of a remarkable discovery. This morning, 3 Lumisecs appeared at the station entrance. This has never happened before. They approached our research team without fear and allowed us to conduct non-invasive scans. The data we gathered in 30 minutes exceeded everything we've learned in 6 months. After the scans, they returned to the thermal vents. I don't know what prompted this behavior, but I wanted you to know. Perhaps the ice moon is not as hostile as we thought." Sarah closed the message and looked out her window at the frozen landscape of Kelvar 9. In the distance, she could see the thermal vents glowing faintly against the ice. She had stayed still so they would not wake, and they had remembered.